Specifically, you were asked about your expertise regarding mobile data devices. Mobile devices and their data, correct?
Yes.
And were you being truthful when you indicated that you were not an expert in
Yes.
that field? Were you being truthful when you indicated that you have a certain expertise in EDR data?
Yes.
Were you being truthful when you indicated that you did review Mr. Burgess's data and Mr. Welcher's data as reflected in their reports and PowerPoints?
Yes.
Were you being truthful about your credentials?
Yes.
Have you ever lied about your credentials?
No.
You hold a bachelor's degree
Yes.
and you hold a master's degree.
I do.
You ever lied to anybody about that?
No.
Mr. DiSogra, what is the only reason you amended your PowerPoint presentation from its original version to the one that you most recently amended it to?
To include the additional analysis and data points from Mr. Burgess's supplemental report, the May 8th report.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go
The
ahead.
May 8th report.
So you amended yours because he amended his.
Correct.
You were asked just a second ago about all the text stream events that you noted on Ms. Reed's SUV, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan asked you about a specific text stream event at or around 5:07 in the morning, and whether you had something like that committed to memory, correct?
Yes.
You said, I don't have them all committed to memory, right?
I don't.
What did you say after that? Because there's how many?
It was 19 events prior to 1162-2, 19 other events.
How about after 1162?
There were a number after 1162-2. I don't have the exact count in my head.
How about after 1162, just on January 29th, going into January 30th?
There were other events.
How many?
I don't recall the exact number.
Does 11 sound right?
That it sounds plausible. I recall seeing in the chart. I recall seeing a number of events after.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at a chart?
It would. Thank you. Yeah, there are a lot. I would have to really use my finger to count them all.
Okay. More than 8?
Total after 1162-2?
Only on the 29th.
There aren't date stamps on these because this chart is the raw text stream data, which doesn't have timestamps.
Okay. Safe to say there are many, right?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
And again, this goes back to a question that you were asked by Mr. Brennan. I want to follow up on. In no instance were any of those related to a collision, to your knowledge, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Were any of those that you reviewed at any time, the lifetime of the vehicle, related to a collision?
None of them were triggered by a collision.
Thank you. I want to ask you a hypothetical, if I could, based on questioning by Mr. Brennan surrounding the 12/32/09 lock event. Do you remember him asking you about those questions, about that event?
Yes.
Your analysis was based on the time span. Let me rephrase that. Was your analysis based on Mr. Burgess's and Mr. Welcher's analyses together of a span of time between the 1162-2 text stream event or trigger event and the lock event at 12/32/09?
Objection.
So the question is, Is that what he's considering?
Correct. In other words, was he basing his opinion or analysis on that time frame, at least in part?
So I'll let that question stand.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. If you were told that there was another interaction phone event on John O'Keefe's phone at 12:32:16 in the form of steps taken, 36 steps over the course of 83 feet, would that change your analysis or opinion in any way?
Objection.
I'll allow that in that form.
Yes.
In what way?
If the phone event moves from 12:32:09 to 12:32:16, then of the 30 possibilities I had in the chart, all of them would become positive. That would mean that that interaction occurs after the end of the vehicle event every single time. Instead of, it was 25 for 30 in the original analysis, the hypothetical would change it to 30 for 30.
All of them, all 30 of them, would occur at a point in time. Let me rephrase that. All of them would reflect a scenario in which the phone interaction took place after the trigger event.
That's correct.
Thank you. If you were told that there was another interaction phone event on John O'Keefe's phone at 12:32:16 in the form of steps taken, 36 steps over the course of 83 feet, would that change your analysis or opinion in any way?
Objection.
I'll allow that in that form.
Yes.
In what way?
If the phone event moves from 12:32:09 to 12:32:16, then of the 30 possibilities I had in the chart, all of them would become positive. That would mean that that interaction occurs after the end of the vehicle event every single time. Instead of, it was 25 for 30 in the original analysis, the hypothetical would change it to 30 for 30.
All of them, all 30 of them, would occur at a point in time. Let me rephrase that. All of them would reflect a scenario in which the phone interaction took place after the trigger event.
That's correct.
Thank you. If you were told, let me give you another hypothetical, if you were told that there was a Doppler state event on the phone, pocket state event on the phone at 12:33:14, would that impact your opinion in any way?
Objection.
Sustained.
You were asked several questions about what you believed Mr. Burgess may have gotten wrong in terms of his original report and one of his original analyses dealing with bits and bytes. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Did Mr. Burgess...
Hold on.
Of course.
You need to, you know what, we have to turn the fans off.
And I'm not speaking loud enough?
Right.
I'm sorry. I'll raise my voice. I just don't want to scream over people, but I will raise my voice.
Let's try this for a few minutes.
May I start again?
That question, yes.
Thank you. You were asked about whether or not you believed that Mr. Burgess was incorrect in terms of certain analyses he undertook or reflected in his original report back in January of 2025, correct?
Correct.
As it relates to the bits and bytes, did you find that Mr. Burgess was incorrect or correct about his analysis concerning the size of the data set collected based on bits versus bytes?
He was incorrect.
Explain that to the jurors very briefly.
These are just different units. A bit is a different size than a byte. And so if a size for something is listed in bits, for example, and you look at the data and assume it's in bytes, you will assume it's the wrong size.
Which Mr. Burgess did based on your review of his report, correct?
Correct.
I want to change gears and ask a different question or series of questions about the text stream data versus the infotainment system data, specifically the timestamps associated therewith. Is there a timestamp associated with text stream data?
In this case, no.
Okay. Is there a timestamp associated with infotainment system data?
Yes.
All right. The infotainment system data, well, let me see if I can ask it a different way. Where did the 3-second delay come from? Your analysis of Mr. Burgess's review of the text stream data, or his review of the infotainment system data?
The 3 seconds came, well, fundamentally it came from the exemplar testing, where he identified, and he was actually, well, Aperture collectively in that testing identified a difference between when the button was pushed and the time that showed up in the infotainment. But they didn't actually look at, as far as I know, or at least it wasn't provided if they did, how that specifically related to the key-on timer itself. But they showed that the button is pushed, there's a 3-second delay, and then the time gets logged.
When that button is pushed for the infotainment system, I'm going to rephrase again, so I'm as clear as I can be. When that button is pushed for the on event, the key on event, is that like a stopwatch? A stopwatch starts running? Timer?
In the VCH system, yes.
Okay. Separate and apart from the VCH system, is there an infotainment system that also has a timer or a clock on it?
As a clock.
Are those two things independent of one another?
Completely independent.
What were you doing with regard to the 3-second delay as it relates to the key on event and the infotainment system event to marry those two things together?
Right. I'm making the adjustment, or proposing that adjustment can be made, because the key on timer is going to start generally as soon as the vehicle powers on. But the infotainment, when you go and download the data, it will say, hey, I think I powered on at this time, and it turns out that time is actually 3 seconds off. So if you're going to then apply the infotainment time anywhere else to VCH data, you've got to realign the two. And that's where the 3 seconds comes from, is these are independent data sources.
Did Mr. Burgess, to your review of his, insofar as your review of his analysis, his report is concerned, did he align the two vis-a-vis the 3-second delay?
No, he did not.
Thank you. With the court's permission, may we have slide 10 of the PowerPoint of,
Okay.
and that is, we've talked a lot about PowerPoints of Mr. DiSogra's PowerPoint. Can you highlight the table on the left, Mr. Wolk? Thank you. Did you create this table?
No.
Was this table, I don't know if you call it cut and paste or if there's some better engineering term for it, was it basically pulled from Mr. Burgess's report?
It was. It was a screenshot.
Thank you. Screenshot. Did you type a single word on this?
I did not. I added a green box.
Put a green box around it.
Yes.
You didn't type anything on this, did you?
I did not.
You were asked a ton of questions just a few minutes ago about whether or not the column on the left and the center column were reflective of an infotainment timestamp versus an iPhone to iPhone timestamp, correct?
That's right.
Mr. Brennan asked you a bunch of questions about that left column being an iPhone timestamp, at least the top 5 rows of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of it. Remember that?
Yes.
Read the name that Mr. Burgess labeled that column.
Infotainment call timestamps.
So what, as an expert, what did you presume he, as an expert, was presuming?
Objection.
Sustain.
What did you presume that meant? To you, just to you.
Call timestamps from the infotainment.
So if anything is wrong with your analysis, would it be based on Mr. Burgess being wrong in his analysis?
Objection.
Sustain.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Sure. Do you need the light on?
I don't. And we can pull that down. What was your entire analysis predicated on? What was it based on? The foundation of it, as you explained your analysis to this jury during the course of the day?
The testing by Aperture and the collective reports and PowerPoint presentations by Aperture. That would be an initial report by Mr. Burgess, an initial PowerPoint by Dr. Welcher, and a supplemental report by Mr. Burgess.
Did you change any of their data?
No.
Did you change any of their analyses?
No.
Did you explain their analyses?
Yes.
Sustained. Ask it differently.
Sure. What were you trying to do in terms of your presentation, in your PowerPoint, and your presentation to this jury?
There were a number of different methodologies presented across all of those reports and PowerPoints, and sort of all in different places. So my goal was to bring all of them into one place so we could look at the totality of the data.
You were asked whether the genesis of your analysis relies on knowing the source of the calls, correct? You remember being asked that by Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
The actual genesis of your entire opinion is based on Mr. Burgess's and Mr. Welcher's analyses, correct?
That's correct.
You were also asked why you believed Mr. Burgess did a quote-unquote more detailed report in May versus January of 2025. Do you remember being asked that just a few minutes ago?
Yes.
When you presented your analysis, your math, based on Mr. Burgess's January 2025 report, how many of the scenarios indicated, based on his data and his analysis, that the lock event occurred after the texting event?
All of them.
Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Brennan.
So, Mr. DiSogra, this demonstrates the danger or the difficulty.
Hold on.
This is
Start the
It's
question
cross-examination.
differently.
It is. It has to be a question.
Start. Go ahead, Mr. Brennan.
This demonstrates the difficulty in giving opinions when you don't actually study the data itself. Isn't that fair to say?
What are you referring to with this?
Well, you're giving opinions, but you can't verify any of the data because you're not relying on your study of the data, are you?
I'm relying on expert reports.
You're criticizing somebody's report, but you yourself can't defend data that you haven't actually analyzed and broken down yourself.
I don't think that's true.
When you're looking at, turn on 10 please, when you're looking at someone's report, you're guessing as to what they thought or presumed if you haven't spoken to them. Fair?
I would say I'm reading the words that are in front of me and interpreting them for what they say.
When someone plugs their iPhone into a car after it turns on, and the car reads data that's on the iPhone, that data then resides itself or resides on the infotainment system, correct?
There's a transfer of data.
And
Yes.
so unless you actually do the study yourself, you had no way of knowing if that information, although on the iPhone, on the infotainment system, you had no idea whether it was from an iPhone or from the infotainment. Fair?
That's right. I don't think that's.
And so when you
No.
don't actually do the work yourself, and you just presume or you guess, you could get it wrong, couldn't you?
If I had guessed, yes, but I didn't guess. I used the data in the reports and I referenced the testing that Aperture did. So I did not make a guess.
1 through 5, and you telling me right now, to a reasonable degree of data certainty, that that information is based on the infotainment clock. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know.
You don't know. But if you actually did the analysis yourself rather than just Monday morning quarterbacking somebody's report,
Objection.
So I'm going to strike it, ask it differently,
if
Mr.
you
Brennan.
actually did the analysis yourself, you wouldn't have to make a presumption that it would be wrong, correct?
I don't think the analysis was possible in this case because the testing wasn't done in this case.
You don't know if the testing was done or not. You didn't do the
Objection,
testing.
Your Honor.
So I need to hear the question.
You don't know if the testing was done or not, do you?
I know it's in the reports. The testing wasn't in the reports.
Did you read Jessica Hyde's report?
No.
Did you read Ian Whitten's report?
No.
You don't know if that testing was done, do you?
I don't.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to let that stand.
You don't
Next.
know.
I do not, sir.
And so if you're wrong, your assumptions and product are then wrong.
Part of my conclusions would change. I wouldn't agree that I'm wholesale wrong.
Well, as a scientist, if they're not accurate, that would be wrong, wouldn't it?
That might be a nuanced answer.
I'm sorry?
I said that might be a nuanced answer. Frankly, I'm not sure how to give you a good answer to that
If
question.
you have the wrong data when you're doing your analysis, then the final analysis is going to be wrong if you have using the wrong data. It's that simple.
Yes.
Right? You don't have to be a scientist to figure that out.
Yes. That's,
Okay.
If we could have Mr. Welcher's 33.
If you could open that up, please.
You were asked about whether the window is within the time frame of 12/32/09, the last user interaction with the phone. When you look at this data, could you go to the top, please? You see on vehicle speed, the car is moving. You see that? Could you enlarge that a little bit, please? The beginning of that data capture, the car's already moving, correct?
I see vehicle speeds. Right, in those first couple of lines. Yes.
Yes?
Yes, I see
Yes.
vehicle speed.
If you go to the bottom, at the end, the car is still moving. Yes?
I see vehicle speeds there as well.
2361. That would indicate, in your experience with text stream data, the car is still moving. Yes?
At the end of the record, there is a vehicle speed. The car is moving. That would be my assumption.
Okay. And so, when you're making your conclusions that something's with or without, you're simply talking about the time of the 10 seconds of data. Yes?
Yeah, everything that I've done has been referencing the end of event 1162-2, which is exactly how it's been referenced in all of the other reports.
That 10-second window. Yes?
Not even the window, just the end. Everything in the Aperture reports talks about the end of event 1162-2. So that's what I used across everything.
And when you say end of event, you're referring just to data, not the actual real-life event.
Yeah, absolutely. The end of the recording.
Okay. And so, after that window, 12/32/04 to 12/32/12, you were asked a question about what might have happened 4 seconds later, 12/32/16. Remember you were asked about that?
Yes.
Did you know at 12/32/16 that John O'Keefe's cell phone moved for the last time? Did you know that?
No.
And between 12/32/12, which is in the 10-second window, and 12/32/16, do you know what John O'Keefe was doing in that 4-second period?
No.
Do you know if he was walking?
No.
Do you know if he was crawling?
No.
Do you know if he was falling?
No.
You don't know.
I do not know.
Okay. May I briefly withdraw?
Okay?
12/32/16 wasn't just that Mr. O'Keefe's phone was moving, there were steps being taken, correct?
I didn't review the phone data, so I don't know.
can't indicate that the steps were taken over the course of 83 feet?
Objection.
Anything
So
else?
that's
Objection.
sustained.
You were asked just a second ago. What about the data? What if it's wrong? Then you'd be wrong, correct?
Generally, yes.
Garbage in, garbage out. Basic scientific postulate, correct?
Generally, yes.
You're relying on whose data?
Mr. Burgess's data and Dr. Welcher's data.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. DiSogra, you are all set, sir. So
you,
you
Your Honor.
can step down. I'm going to see counsel for a minute.